Well, well, well. Would you look at that? It is time for... I almost said News Express Monday, but it's not that. It's ThursdAGE. I'm absolutely beside myself because we're talking about Threefold. You know, Threefold is not... I'm not super familiar with it, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with Malcolm. We're going to talk all about it because, you know, Malcolm's the coolest dude that walks these hallowed halls here at the ThursdAGE main stage. And this is a little repetitive music. We're going to wind that down and say, hey, look at this. We've got Allie's here. Good to see you, Allie. We got Jay Gray. We've got Ren's here. Duke's here. Look at all of you. Stormer's here. So good to see everybody. Looking real good. Of course, we are streaming on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn, which is, you know, where all TTRPG superstars should go. And speaking of superstars, one moment, please. Welcome, Malcolm. How are you doing, friend?
Oh, I'm not too bad. Did my taxes.
Oh, hey, exciting.
Watched a Wham documentary while doing my taxes. Now I have everything she wants in my head.
Nice.
Down,
Yeah.
down. But I'm not going to sing because that's not why I'm here.
The Police?
No, that's Wham.
Oh, Wham. Oh,
yes.
I was thinking of every little thing she wants.
Oh, yeah. Every little thing.
Every little thing she does. Yeah, that does. Gotcha.
Yeah. We're really drawing in the millennials and younger with this chat.
I know. It's the Wham that's bringing them in, sure.
Those early 80s bands, they can't get enough of it, those kids.
That's right. Hang out. Gen X is here to walk you through the the hits of the 80s, 90s, and today.
Yeah, it's just like hanging out with your dad who's not paying attention to you.
Right. Well, listen, we are paying attention, friends, to a degree. We're also, Threefold is an adventure setting for Modern Age. Talk to me about it, because there's more to it than just Threefold.
All right. So the basic idea behind Threefold was that I wanted to do a default setting for Modern Age that functions in the way that default or assumed settings work for a lot of other games, right? So, for example, in Fantasy Age, we eventually solidified it to Stranger Shores, but Fantasy Age has a vibe, right? And the vibe is traditional fantasy adventure combined with some Age of Sail elements, right? So we don't need to explain that every single time we do Fantasy Age stuff. So, because if you see a monster on a boat, you know it fits with the vibe, right?
Right, yeah.
So Modern Age, we can't quite do that because, as I've said before, there's no modern genre. There are many modern genres, right? There are many fantasy genres too, but modern is a little different in that respect because our image of fantasy is in RPGs is very bound up to the industry leader. But I will fearlessly say Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, and also, games in that tradition, and Tolkien fantasy and post-Tolkien fantasy and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's a general set of motifs around fantasy that we don't have for modern games. So the idea was to create a setting that could still do a lot of the shorthand functions and be consistent, even though we don't have the ability to set the genre for everybody. So I originally did this as a modern supernatural game. But when I brought it to the other developers and Chris, it was rightly pointed out that this was sort of going along the same lines as stuff I had done before, right? Because As some of you may or may not know, before Green Ronin, I did quite a bit of work for White Wolf intellectual properties throughout the various companies that have licenses to do stuff with them, such as White Wolf and White Wolf again in a different corporate form, and then later Onyx Path. And then I think I did something for, anyway, it gets confusing because they keep selling bits of each other to other bits of each other.
Right, right.
And he was super right. So I thought bigger and eventually came on the idea of doing Threefold after actually reading through some of the GMing material in the Modern AGE core, right?
Okay.
There was some great stuff done by Sean Ingham and the late Alejandro Melchor. And one of the things was like talking a bit about portal fantasy. And I thought, well, you know, not only could I take this sort of diverse sci-fi horror supernatural setting that I've done and expand it by having it, you know, be kind of smeared across multiple worlds. But I could take a serious look at what that sort of portal fantasy, alternate Earth sort of genre was, and how to make it a little more game friendly, and how to introduce distinct elements to it, right? So that sort of evolved into Threefold as soon as I got a sense of like how it's going to work, like in terms of the, you know, fictional metaphysics and all of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I outlined it. It was a big outline, and did some preliminary sketches for some of the elements, like the Sodality badges. And then we went and did it. And what the kind of setting we ended up with is this idea that there are, you know, numerous different planes of existence, and they are mostly connected by gates. And these gates can take many forms, but they have certain elements in common, which is that they are, and one of them is that they're extremely persistent, right? Because I was trying to really take a deep look at how to make this sustainable. And one of the big problems with any kind of like portal fantasy setting or anything with gates between worlds is that, like, what happens when somebody like knocks over the gate, right? You know?
Yeah, right.
Right. So the idea is that, you know, one of the elements in Threefold is that, you know, if you blow up a gate or fill it in or something, it just has a tendency to reform itself. And the reason I wanted that was so that we could start dealing not just with, you know, plane hopping fantasy in terms of, oh, you know, your characters are in this unique position where you have this power to go places, you know, normies can't go, right?
Yeah.
Which is, you know, if you've ever watched Sliders or any sort of thing where, you know, you belong to the time agency or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's the basic premise. And I wanted.
Oh, go ahead. I just want let me jump in here real fast just to say a couple comments that I think are great. Now, is Threefold and Five in Infinity, are those elements that are included in the Age Creators Alliance with Modern Age?
Yes, I believe so.
That's great. Yeah, I believe so as well. But I had a moment of like, is it? But yeah. So there's that. Ren mentioned that this is reminding them that they need to get some work done for their setting. They're going to write for the Modern Age side of the Age Creators Alliance. So let that remind you all. And then Tempo asks, is Threefold basically isekai?
No, because it's not consistent. Like a part of it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because it has to do with the way the planes are arranged. But one of the differences between Threefold and traditional isekai is that your ability to travel to another world is not unique.
Okay.
Right. So that's, you know, why I was blathering on about the gates early, because the main thing I wanted to do was like, well, what if gate travel is, you know, just a thing in some worlds? What if it's just a thing people do, right? And if that's just a thing people do, well, what kind of nation state or imperial bodies come up as a result of that, right?
Gotcha.
So the idea is that, a big part of Threefold on the meta level is great power struggles for all of the planes, right? And that's why we detail big factions that all have transplanar elements. But we also wanted to make it so that you could run something very satisfying just on Earth or just in a fantasy world. So we have layers of this. And this kind of gets to one of the challenges I've had sort of pushing Threefold, which is that I kind of designed it I wanted it to be a super dense setting, in that I wanted it to look like it's something that was already 20 years old. Right?
Okay.
So how, when you get an RPG that's setting based, right? It will have sort of a loose treatment of the setting, and then, it'll be further detailed in supplements. And then later on, all of the lessons learned through those supplements will be condensed into the next edition of it, and you'll have a more detailed setting, right?
I get it. Yeah.
So I wanted to skip the first edition.
Right.
And go right to the second edition, right? And treat it as a second edition book, right?
Yeah.
As we're bringing together all this stuff from supplements we never wrote for an original edition we never did, right? And bringing it together. So it's dense. It is full of stuff, right? So to help people navigate it, we kind of lean back on that, transplanar great power struggle of these nations that have spread across multiple planes of existence, right? And we have sort of three general categories of planes of existence. We have Earth and its alternates, and we have other worlds, which are places where magic is dominant. And we have netherworlds, which are hellish, nasty places ruled by Alastors, who are demon lords who hold the plane together with their psychic will of force. Right.
Got it. Now, are those the planes?
Those are the three types of planes.
Okay, got you.
Right. And other worlds and netherworlds, there's a web of gates that connect them. Right. Okay. And the gates are persistent. So you can have things like invasions of planes, and people can't just, break the gate to prevent it. Right.
Got you. Yeah. Now, Ren says, okay, I love how Threefold is profoundly accommodating for different campaign styles, but they can all fit seamlessly. Mm-hmm. So is that a design intention?
Yes. The idea is that you can run a normal Modern Age game, and then you can go, all right, actually, there are these types of people who have, have a supernatural or otherworldly ancestry, right?
Yeah.
And there are these secret organizations on Earth doing this weird stuff. And you can still run all this on Earth and use those resources. And then you can at one point have the revelation that, well, many worlds exist. All right. So the, setting that you spent, let's say the first 4 to 8 levels of play on, right, is actually part of this even bigger setting.
Got it.
Right. So
Jay Gray asked, did you take any inspiration from riffs?
From which?
Riffs.
Oh, the Palladium riffs? Not consciously, no.
Gotcha.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Tempo mentioned
it's not the kind of setting where gates open and just stuff spews out. Mostly. There are some exceptions, right?
Yeah.
Like you have things called, I guess in American, there would be Z-class planes that you don't want to go to, and bad things can come out of them.
Gotcha. I'm just flipping over to the planes,
so,
the major planes. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So that is a list of some of the planes. One of the things we have is the planes have catalog code, and in the fiction, so Alatum is, otherworld. It's OD 00070. So Alatum. That's because Alatum is the capital plane of the Divine Empire, which is one of the big factions. It's a big, nasty, totalitarian state run by demigods. What it indicates is the O is for otherworld, which is the general type of plane. The D is for its political affiliation with the Divine Empire. And the 70 is basically the order in which it appears in a catalog by another organization called the Sodality. The Sodality is an arm of the Vitain, and the Vitain is sort of the, if this were Star Trek, they'd be the Federation, right?
Okay. All right.
They're kind of, they believe in, helping people meet their needs and democracy and free expression and all that good stuff, right?
Got it.
And they have an exploration arm called the Sodality, who even get fancy badges. So it's kind of like Star Trek, except you do more walking.
Okay.
Right. And that's one of the things, actually. Megan Fitzgerald wrote a great chapter in the Threefold setting book about how we envision campaigns working, right? And a lot of it harkens, we call it speculative fantasy. So if you remember back to Star Trek, you have what's called the Planet of Hats plot. For those of you who don't, you go down to a planet and there's just this one signature weird thing.
Yeah.
Captain, they all appear to be wearing hats.
Right.
Damn it, Jim, if they don't take off these hats, they're all going to die. Don't you people know anything about hats? And that's the center of all of it, right? So we have a way to kind of break down and use those stories.
Nice.
Right? But you don't have to be part of the Sodality. We also have, alternate Earth hopping cyborgs in an organization called Aethon. There are transplanar criminals. Although in the game that I'm playing right now, because here's the thing, I don't run Threefold right now, though I have, but I play it. I've been playing a long-running campaign.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So my GM, Steve, not to be confused with Steve Kenson.
Very cool Steve Kenson. Yeah.
The very cool Steve Kenson. So less cool Steve, if you're seeing this, hello.
Steve, you could be just as cool. No one's judging. Yeah.
He's a great guy. But so the so there's like a transplanter criminal group that it's called the Cryptea that frequently serves as a foil, right? Because one of the things they do is they trade in souls. So souls are valuable in Threefold.
Okay.
They're kind of like the glowy live forever paste in Jupiter Ascending. If you've seen that, they can extend lives and be a source of magical power and all that. And of course, it's really evil to rip people's souls out.
I would imagine.
So, souls are kind of like they have an important thing in the backstory that I don't want to get into too much because it's kind of spoilery.
Okay.
Spoilery, GME kind of stuff. But,
Gotcha.
But the disposition of souls is kind of a big deal. And there's some subtextual stuff about the nature of consciousness. So you have these like you have hierarchs and you have various spirit beings and things that look and act intelligent but aren't intelligent. They're essentially magical expert systems, right?
Okay, like AI.
Well, they're not really artificial, right?
Okay.
But they just mimic consciousness extremely well, right?
Okay.
And it's one of the things I want to talk about. Maybe I'll write about it in Engine sometime, right?
Yeah.
Is there's a whole question of identity and consciousness, and that's something that actually comes up in the adventure that's in the Threefold book.
Nice.
The introductory adventure. So the Threefold book has an introductory adventure. There's also an adventure series with some story generation resources called 5 and Infinity, and there is a Threefold quick start that's free.
That's right. We gotta
Yes.
surface that. I believe it must be hanging out over on Free Ronin. I'll look here in a moment. But
Yeah. I
real,
think
real
it's on
quick.
the Modern Age webpage as well, right?
Yeah. But before you go on, real quick, there are a couple questions that folks have. Is this the right place to drop them in, or do you want to
No,
get
tell me what they are.
awesome? Great. So we talked about. Nicole says Z class. Thanks for translating that into American. American
Oh, did I
speakers.
say Z instead of Z?
You did.
Oh, criminy.
Good stuff. That's all right.
I'll
Gray
never
says,
get that.
"Great, yeah, no worries. We like to hear it, and we can make fun of it." Gray says, "What design choices did you make to keep from going too far over into sci-fi, which isn't really modern?" In parentheses.
It kind of has to do with the metaphysics of the setting, because the idea, how much do I want to give away? The idea is that the universe is not exactly fully formed, right? And we kind of have three sources of power or extraordinary abilities in the setting. One of them is technology, right? And technology generally works best on Earths, right?
Okay.
So that's why Aethon, who deal with alternate others, they can be like, like post-human cyborgs with guns popping out of their arms or whatever, right? And we have rules for that in the book. The other source of power we have is magic, which we kind of conceive of as sort of structured creativity, right? So the idea is that magic comes from the same place as art, right?
Okay.
And you can gain power by engaging in creative works or by draining it from a creative person, from an artist while they're working.
Got you. Now, what's the mechanism? Is it a magical siphoning? You hook up a funnel to their head, or like what's the?
You just kind of rip it out of them. It's in the book.
Okay, gotcha. I'll have to look into that.
Right, you rip it out of them while they're working on their thing, and magic is very potent in other worlds.
Okay.
Right, which are these fantasy lands, like Alatum, the plane we were looking at earlier, is an infinite flat sea with islands dotting it. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's in some places there's big magic.
Got you. Hey, disembodied voice. Howdy. What did you miss? Well, we are talking about Threefold and Five at Infinity, and of course for Modern Age, and you came just at the right time.
Yeah. So, and then you have what we kind of call the occult, which is not magic in the siphoning, in the like power of mythic creativity sense, but magic in the dealing with dark forces and
like Ouija
crossing the occult threshold into the void and doing that kind of dangerous stuff, which we associate with modern age as psychic powers, right?
Okay, all right.
And there's a system of rituals that can be used to extend psychic powers further. We kind of use, the reason we use psychic powers for the occult is so that there's kind of a spiritualist influence, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which is something like that kind of like turn of the century spiritualism, and like that the kind of modern paranormal movement that extended from that and sort of entered in the New Age movement. I think there's some material to sort of borrow from there, right?
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes in a critical way, because I am personally a somewhat skeptical person, so
sure.
So we have these, So we have these sources of power, and we have a rule called incessants for how they interact. So if you go to a magical plane with a complex firearm, right, it might just turn to wood after a while as it gets assimilated by the natural laws of the plane, right?
Okay.
Or the gunpowder stops working properly, right?
It just doesn't exist in that plane.
Yeah. Similarly, if you go to a plane where technology is dominant, which is almost always an Earth, right? Magic can be a little harder to cast, and and sometimes magic items can degrade over time.
Gotcha. So that's sort of an element that you added to sort of keep it from going too sci-fi.
Yeah, to keep it from going to sci-fi, or to like, it's a dial that you can turn, right?
Got it.
Like you
I
could
like
conceivably run, you could run a Threefold game that's Aethon focused and has entirely to do with alternate Earths and does not bring in any of the other stuff ever, and have it be like 100% sci-fi if you wanted.
So
and
you
it
could,
wouldn't,
yeah.
and it wouldn't contradict the setting, right? I
But
really wanted this to be a place where you could put whatever game you want, and then you can branch out from it.
Okay, nice. Now here's Squire asks a question: can gates exist in other worlds in a plane, or is it Earth only?
Oh, yeah, there are gates everywhere.
Okay.
The only exception is that there are very few gates between alternate Earths, right?
Got
and
it.
Instead, there is a device that Aethon agents and some other people use, which is basically, a high-tech metal box you get into that teleports you to another plane. It's kind of like a off-brand TARDIS, I guess. But the thing is one of the things in the backstory is that there probably are gates between the Earths, but Aethon seems to have found some way of preventing access to them, right?
Okay, and they do that maliciously, or
it has to do with the material in the Game Master section of the book.
Fair enough. The nature of being, I presume.
It has to do with like this is one of those things where there's no meta plot, but there are secrets that you can kind of dole out.
Okay, nice,
right?
Nice.
Not that I'm saying if you're going to play it, like, don't read half the book, right? Because
right.
We're grown-ups here, but I do want to kind of preserve that mystery.
I love it. Yeah, we can. We appreciate that. So here's another. Oh, so Tempo mentions that says, I bet Mortal Kombat would be good, a good, if not gory, look at Threefold. Is there? What are some other, given that he's got such versatility and can support so many different...
Yeah, it puts, Mortal Kombat, Emily. It's funny, I'm not too familiar with the Dark Tower series.
Was it Stephen King's jam?
Yeah.
The Western, I think.
Yeah, but there was a lot of stuff that if I were running Threefold, I would definitely rip from that once I started. I saw the like mediocre movie, and then I just read a bunch of Wikipedia articles, and I went, oh wow, I kind of wish I had gotten into it, because I probably would have, there would have been definitely more inspiration there. But
Gotcha.
Also it's kind of nice to go your own route instead of constantly trying to grab influences from big media and big creators and sort of saying, oh, me too, alongside that, which is sort of a disease we have in games. So
yeah, and I think too, there's that homebrew kind of dream that when folks start getting into publishing their own stuff, that they want to be, they want to pursue. But there are also so many great IPs out there that people may resonate with. I'm thinking of Fallout.
Yes.
This feels
that's
like
another one where I don't know much about it. Although the person who got me my first gig in the industry, Jesse Hanick, who's so good, he was one of, he worked on the original Fallout, but we've never really discussed it. But I was very happy with the show. Because one of the reasons is I'm a big fan of, Jonathan Nolan, right? Because he worked on a show that I quite like called Person of Interest. And it was kind of neat to see some of the same things and ideas from Person of Interest in Fallout.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a good friend by the name of Timothy Kane. We worked together at a game studio, and he's the guy that one of the main designers for Fallout.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah, I mean he was. Yeah, I mean he wrote,
Mhm.
he did the story, and he created it and produced it and programmed it and all that. It's always exciting to see the greater reaches that
Yeah,
IP goes.
yeah.
But seeing a TTRPG really just feels like it would
Mhm.
work.
Yeah. Oh, I'm super impressed with the show. I forget who has the RPG license though. I know somebody
Isn't
has.
that
Is it Modifius?
oh, the TTRPG or the
Yeah,
RPG? Yes, yeah. Ah, that's a good question.
I think Modifius has it, but I know somebody announced having it.
That's
And I'll
Modifius.
just
That's correct. Yeah, that's
yeah,
correct.
okay. Well, yeah, a lot of the times like who has that license? The answer is either Modifius or Free League.
Right, right.
Right.
Here's
Um
a question. And the question is, let me get back up here. So here we go. Stormer says, so given how the planes are set up, could unrelated planes just be dropped in as you see fit? Say, for
oh yeah.
example, I wanted to transition my Ravnica group to Threefold. Could I just make it a plane?
Well, I mean, when you if you transition your current game to a threefold, then the revelation is usually that your game setting was always part of a bigger metacosm,
There we go. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's not threefold doesn't take place on a plane; it takes place on thousands of planes, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Any other thoughts on sort of transitioning people to this? Is there? I mean, of course, age and of everyone who's
Mhm.
watching is of course a big fan, and they get it, and they
Mhm.
don't, they'll learn it quite quickly. And once you learn one, you kind of crack the code on all of
Yeah.
them.
Well, I mean, this is a supplement for Modern Age, right?
That's right.
So you can run like um, the way I did it when I was running it. I didn't have much time to do adventure support because it's hard for me to write my own adventures for my table and write adventures for you at the same time. So I took a lot of stuff that we had already produced. So I started with the Modern Age Missions adventure Warflower.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I went through the adventure in the Threefold Quick Start,
Mm-hmm.
which introduces the setting, and then I started going through a combination of Five and Infinity and whatever I could improvise.
Got it.
Right. Because Five and Infinity has adventures that can take your characters to high level, and you jump over to a bunch of planes, and it is fairly fun. There's one adventure that starts with the apocalypse.
Okay. Great. Well, that's
So
fun. I dig that. Okay. Awesome. So
yeah,
that would be your sort of way of kind of getting
yeah,
into simmering,
yeah,
if you will, in it.
yeah. Like I don't know, there are lots of media things you can draw from for that. Like like the first Men in Black, of which the others are sadly inferior copies.
Truth.
Right, but that whole I could see that being a way to grab someone to join Aethon or the Sodality, which are the two player character friendly factions, right?
Got it.
And you're a party of Will Smiths who are, exceptional people who they need to do a job, right?
Right. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Thank you, Stromer, for that. Tempo asks, "Is Threefold's occult like sorcery or occultism from Blue Rose?"
No, the base is the psychic powers in the Modern Age core and new powers that are in there, with the addition of rituals, right? So those are things where you can, create a bigger effect, but you need some seeds from existing psychic powers as well as, material components and actions and things like that, right?
Yeah. Now, Rain says, I mentioned a game series called The Longest Journey, which is now called Dreamfall, that it has some characters who can jump back and forth between two worlds, one with magic and one that's futuristic. And they mentioned that Threefold could really hit that fun vibe. I'm not familiar with the property myself, but is that one you're familiar with? Are you
I am not familiar
Dreamfall?
with it.
Okay.
But, what I can do is talk in terms of, so like I said, I have been playing a Threefold campaign, and I've been running the character for a few years now, and he has made it to 12th level recently, all the way from first.
Nice.
And what I can do is I can tell you about, I'll tell you about my character.
Everybody loves it.
Yeah. Yeah. You
turn the tables.
You sons of bees. You can dish it out, but can you take it?
Beauties.
And here's something that will, you may find amusing. I randomly rolled up this guy, and he ended up being a perfect fit for the iconic that Sean Ingham made that was based on me.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me see if I can pull that.
Oh, for him. Yeah.
Let me see. That's the guy you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that guy, right? This was not my choice, but it just ended up that way. So anyway, that character's name is Andre.
Okay.
And Andre's background is that, Andre had a rough childhood and eventually found his way to another world, kind of by accident. And as someone, joined the Sodality, likes working with his hands, right?
Okay.
So in addition to being like the guy with the sword, he also has like a machine shop. So his sort of back and forth between technology and magic is that a lot of the other characters in our game, like we have two Aethon agents who are, one's a cyborg, and we have three now, and one has a soul talent, which is in the book. There's a bunch of new talents and specializations and things, like a ton of stuff.
Okay.
In terms of rules content. But there's one talent called Earth Soul, which is you can kind of bring the natural laws of the earth with you places. And that means your equipment doesn't fail due to incessance when you're in a place that doesn't like technology.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So consequently, my character also does a lot of, armor modification and gunsmithing and things like that. Right. For those characters, right? And for the characters who rely on firearms and things like that. However, where I've transitioned with this guy is that he's starting to make magic items, right? And sort of be true to his background, right?
Okay.
And it's been interesting because one of the things is and this is one of the things that I think people have, when I've run the game and played it, people have had trouble with is if you are part of the Sodality, you're good guys and you're not typical adventurers, right? Like you're not typical adventurers who can like kill, beat, and otherwise mistreat people, right? There are some planes where if your character has one of those Sodality badges, you're the law, right? You have real authority.
Gotcha.
And there are rules as to what you can and can't do. So the idea is that, we're, big damn heroes in the vein of, sort of fantasy Star Trek people. And
now,
doing that,
yeah,
I'm coming to a conclusion, I promise.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. But the thing is with Andre, that becomes increasingly incompatible with chopping up people with a sword.
Okay, fair enough.
So basically, my character learned how to create a magic sword to create a sword that doesn't kill people.
Oh,
right. And turns into a walking stick.
I see.
Which I stole from Thor comics.
When
it's
running,
even called the Don Blake.
The dump lake. Okay.
Yeah.
When you run someone through with the sword slash walking stick,
Yeah.
what does it do to them?
It just means that I can set it to do stun damage, right?
Oh, I
So
get you. So you just
so it
turn
kind
on
of
the dump.
phases
Yeah.
through the person and makes them feel real bad,
Gotcha.
but it doesn't chop them up. It just makes them feel like it
Okay, got it. That's nice.
until they stop being a
Doing what you don't
problem.
want them to do or not
Yeah.
doing what you want them to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now here's a question from Tempo. Can you explain the playable species or ancestries in Threefold? Kind
Okay.
of right in that spot.
So basically, one of the premises of Threefold is that, we have ancestries, but the way the ancestries relate to the rules is entirely up to the players and the GM. So each ancestry has a bundle of suggested traits, and you can take any combination of those traits for any combination of ancestry, right? And you do not have to take ancestral traits matching your core ancestry.
Okay.
Right? The GM might encourage you a certain way, but but in real life, people's, who people's parents are and their grandparents are and things are complicated, and we don't really have the idea that these ancestries are different species, right? They're all
Okay.
right. So we have the Draegr, who are kind of, they are generally tough people who come from the netherworlds. We have the Arvu, who are elf-like people, who are usually in the other worlds. There's the Draegr. And we have, what are those dudes called?
Huldra.
Scroll down, the Huldra, right? And the Huldra are your kind of dwarf gnome archetype people.
Okay,
right?
I see it. Is that a stone beard?
Yeah, the idea they have elemental manifestations, right?
I see.
But again, it's up to you. Also being a person is treated the same as being an Arvu, right? So we have Jana, right, which is, kind of, you're a person, but you're kind of a heroic person, right?
Right.
Right.
Oh,
but it can also
you're...
just be used for normal humans because, again, we provide the landmarks in terms of the ancestries in general, and we provide ancestry traits that you take a set of. But how you bundle those together in a story about your character is up to you.
Gotcha.
Right.
And so no, but there aren't, you won't be seeing sort of a, I don't know, Sasquatch-like
maybe
members of the. Okay, all right. So it's not
I mean,
yeah.
they could be. You just add some more. You just create more ancestry traits, right? So
fair enough. Great.
Right, and if you wanted to do that, you would. It's just maybe there are, but they're just not very common. Right. You don't see them in very many planes. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's actually one of in the current campaign that I'm playing. It's, we've discovered a new plane. The plane has an intelligent species that is not even vaguely, that is not really hominid, which is something that is very rare in the setting, right? And because they're intelligent, because they're truly intelligent, they have souls. Because in Threefold's metaphysics, all truly, all beings who are kind of have like human class sapience. That's what generates the soul, right?
Okay.
So there's this plane of these other creatures that also have souls. However, they are disconnected from the rest of the Metacosm and are physically not so strong. And so the Cryptea, who are the interplanetary criminal gang, have been stealing these guys and ripping out their souls.
Oh my goodness!
They've been kidnapping them, ripping out their souls, right?
Gotcha.
And ripping out a soul generally involves treating its owner very badly.
So like teasing them.
Oh yeah, not making them be the last picked.
on the sport,
for
yeah,
softball,
for
you
the
know.
kickball, yeah,
Yeah,
giving them the
actually,
business when
worse
they're
than
doing
that.
a live
Like,
stream.
yeah,
Yeah,
like one of the things is that we have these netherworlds hell realms, right? And the purpose of those is to sort of like cleanse the identity off of its inhabitants through suffering, so that their souls are easy to harvest by
got you.
the demons who run around the place.
I do. Yeah, there's some. It looks like there is some clamoring in the chat for a gravy-based plane. Sasquatch traits being big, hairy, blurry, and gravy. Blurry. I like that a lot. Hang on one second. Let me grab. Can you? Let's see. So there's tech, magic, psychic, TBD, gravy. Was there another possibility that you considered in place of one of those?
No, not really, because I wanted to showcase what we had presented in the core book as the basis for everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had equipment and we had a power section with 2 types of powers. Right. So that's really what it comes down to. One thing I did want to do, though, is create lots of room for interesting antagonists who kind of had a signature thing to them. And I wanted it to be compatible with core modern age stuff. So all of the stuff that's in Enemies and Allies exists in Threefold. Every single thing.
Okay.
Right. But you know, in the adversaries chapter in Threefold, we have a bunch of stuff. Like we have inimicals, which are our demons, right? And the ranks that they come in, and their histories and all of these things. So we have a whole bunch of inspirations for various things. And I think the bit that I found I thought was clever of me to include is I made a basic template that works for like zombies, but also for any kind of automaton.
Okay.
Right. Because zombies in most fiction are, you know, animated corpses that are effectively automata. So,
yeah.
So you can use, you just add a sub template to that, and you can have servitor robots and all these other things.
Okay. So yes, Stormer. I'm actually going to say I do believe that dogs have souls in Threefold, but they're just different.
Well, here's the thing. Like sometimes
boy.
you have to make stuff that fits a concept, but does not necessarily fit your own beliefs. Like
that's true.
I personally, you know, it's funny because I was thinking about this because Daniel Dennett, someone about whom I have very mixed feelings, recently passed away. Now, I didn't like Dennett because of some of his associations, but Dennett was also one of the most important philosophers of consciousness of ever. Right. But, you know, what Dennett would say, and which I am inclined to believe, is that consciousness is sort of the impression of consciousness, or the impression of something being about something in the context of consciousness, which is called qualia.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. Now we're talking about philosophy of consciousness.
The professor is in.
Yeah, but you know, Dennett would argue that basically it's just a kind of utility, right? It's a trick that our mind plays on ourselves to have this idea that we are in a little control room in our head, right?
Yeah.
And there's no reason for other organisms not to have that to the limit of their capacity to, because it has utility, right?
Right.
But at the same time, you know, you have things like, you know, the mirror test, right? The mirror test is used, it's basically to see if animals recognize themselves in mirror. A lot of animals don't, right? But some
But
do.
very specifically, I will say this: there is a little TikTok out there running that shows a dog asking to be suited up in its beautiful pink wings, fairy wings, and it goes and stares at itself very excitedly in the mirror. It's very adorable. So,
Well,
to your point, my friend,
you never know how much of that is trained habit, right? If you're skeptical about such things. But yeah, I think dogs have consciousness.
yeah,
I think everything, you know, I think most I think most things with reasonably complex nervous systems have consciousness.
Yeah.
But in Threefold, we have a definite separation, right?
I see.
Where consciousness generates souls, and for reasons that have to do with the coherence of the setting, that is people that do that.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah. We were putting a little too much energy into the answer to the question of do dogs have souls in Threefold?
Well, no, it's
primarily
something I actually thought about, right? Because
I imagine you have. Yeah. I'm just saying
because
as an uplifting topic, as an inspiration to dive in, might be a more advanced course.
Well, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of this, I will do, like, it's kind of 90% immersive research, 10% production.
Okay.
For these things, right?
Yeah.
And at least when I'm getting started, like there's an adventure coming up for Cthulhu Awakens that's set in the 1960s, and it has to do with the CIA and all these things. And I did a ton of research when I was developing it, right? And so I could talk about how Quonset huts were deployed in the 1960s, right? But I won't, because that would be very boring.
Sure.
But researching that was very important for me, knowing how to put a map that is like semi-plausible together.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And similarly, I researched how the CIA has been organized historically, which has changed over time, and what office the player characters would be interacting with, and who was there at the time, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And that's all. It's that big, huge, all this information, and I have to look at it all to get a sense of which 10% to take out and make relevant to the game. So that's a big part of my process. is doing that, which is why I will go off on these like enormous tangents.
We love it and enjoy it and expect it and demand it. Stormer says, come on now, it's never boring with Troy and Malcolm. Truth. So here's the thing, friends. I want to, does an algorithm have a soul? I would venture to say no, but the people that control it do. And they take the algorithm takes its sort of, as it marches through, mindlessly, soullessly recommending things to people and surfacing shows and live streams and the like. You can help.
How can they help, Troy?
You can help by liking the stream. You can, so one of the things is, for instance, if you're over on YouTube, you can, there's the live commentary, but then there's also the other space, which is just leave a comment, say something, a remark on Malcolm's toque. Ask a question, share it with a friend or a family member, a loved one. Say, hey, this stream I think you'll really want, because you're going to get furious about dogs. So watch all the way to the end and then leave it. And of course your likes, if there's a heart, give us all them hearts. If the thumbs up, give us those. It really helps us. It really makes a difference in surfacing this program and others, our whole channel, really.
Though when I think about, I just can't get off this dog souls thing, because I have been thinking about it. And, I read something where, dogs, like there's a circumstance where dogs can pass the mirror test that I think has been suggested in a study. And how this is coming back to, the role-playing games that you are here
to hear about,
yes, is that, these decisions, I can say, well, it's necessary for the concept of the setting, right? But I want to just remind everybody that saying that, well, it's part of the setting is not an excuse, right? Like, I think there's a basis to criticize Threefold for the way that it handles souls and consciousness, even though we put it together that way. And that's actually one of the reasons that the first, like the adventure in the book is actually about that problem, right? So I kind of wanted to be critical of the setting that I designed in the first adventure for that setting, which may have not been the best idea, but I stand by it.
I get it. I think, yeah, you stand by it because it's an interrogation of the nature of this experience, and people can bring their own experience into this.
Yeah, right. And you know, you might have a threefold game where, you know, where the revelation is that lots of things have souls, but you know, people's magic or something in the underpinnings of the setting has gone off and it's not recognizing this class of souls, right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And if we recognize this new class of souls, are they magically exploitable and all of these things? So we can get, by criticizing the settings that we're working with, even, you know, on any grounds, really, we can get some good stuff to bring to the setting ourselves, right?
Agreed. Agreed. It kind of smashes convention and expectation, and you know, gives them the GM room to GM.
Yeah, GM room to GM, and of course, you know, that's the process. That was a big part of the process for Cthulhu Awakens too, right?
Yeah,
because we had a ton of source material that you absolutely have to interrogate for its for its subtext, right?
Yep, that's
right. And you know, and we got, like, there was a lot of creativity that came out of that, right? I think you have a lot of, especially you know, especially, shall we let, in the right wing of the gaming community, I think you have this idea that, you know, we awful woke people are going to ruin everything by talking about what's problematic. But in fact, that, you know, seeing that something is problematic, and you know what, I will admit that, you know, there are probably, I would think that, you know, saying definitively that dogs don't have souls in Threefold is probably like problematic in the smallest possible way a thing can be problematic, maybe.
Right, yeah. Pretty harmless.
Yes, pretty harmless, right? Because, you know, but when we do that with something, right, we can unlock the creative potential that was left on the floor by those biases in the first place, right? Like, getting back to Lovecraft, think of all the stories that he was too dumb to tell.
Yes.
Because of his politics, right?
Right.
So
he was limited, and that bias and ignorance.
And I think a lot of the time, people confuse bias with genre convention, right?
Fair
and
enough.
They think that's the way it's always been done. I think people are threatened by creativity that comes out of that kind of interrogation.
I think so. You're messing with people's, you know, sort of their molecular structure of their, I
mean, the big thing that's been happening right now, of course, is has been with 40K people, right?
Yeah.
In the whole, what are those? The custodes, where Games Workshop said flatly, there have always been women in this organization, right?
Right.
And a bunch of people like that just fried their noodles. Right.
Yeah.
Because they are unwisely fixated on things, shall we say. But you know what? Once we accept that, you know, the Adeptus Custodes, I think that's who they are. I'm not a big 40K guy. Once we accept that, you know, it's a multi-gendered organization, right? What stories can we tell about that? Like,
right.
Do people raise children?
And what is lost
in the organization?
Frankly,
Pardon?
And what is lost, frankly, by recognizing the nature of things?
Nothing's lost. Absolutely nothing. Right.
I had interesting, Malcolm. I had the same conflict. You know, so the whole, are there female space marines, and you know, now there are, but I had the same friction with historical references to, I worked on a pirate game with Chris Primus, and there were a contingent of people that were absolutely furious that we allowed women to be captains of a pirate ship. It was
What
just
that
like
that
that
you
women would
followed
be allowed.
history?
That's what I said. Yeah, and so there are people who have, for whatever reason, a baked-in notion of the way things ought to be, which sometimes seems strangely opposed to the way things are.
Mhm.
And so that's always curious. But listen, we're at 3:03. We've given them 3 extra minutes. Well, we were a couple minutes late, so
Can we
one
do like a
minute.
couple? Are there any other questions on deck I can take? I've got a little
Um,
juice in me.
you've just got juiced up here. I will say there is there's a great comment that I think is the perfect comment to end on, but I do want to encourage you, Malcolm, to we need to spin up a hanging with Malcolm discussion, because I think that there's not really a place where the interrogation, where we talk about the meta of the creation, and why it was put together the way it was, and why you kind of
Well,
attack the premise in the first encounter. I mean, all that stuff is brilliant. It's just really
yeah.
great.
Why did I say that maybe my own game has my own setting has something wrong with it? Yeah, that's a question.
That's not what you're
The atomic think tank is
saying.
probably a great place, like where to do that, because I'll see you.
And it's almost like you are beating me to the punch. Absolutely. The Atomic Think Tank is quite. Now, Malcolm, congratulations on the launch of Engine.
Hmm.
People enjoying that up and down. But yeah, I think Atomic Think Tank is the place to be.
Hmm.
We should do something. We can stream right to, I haven't messed with it yet, but we can
Hmm.
stream right into the Atomic Think Tank. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, head on over to atomicthinktank.com, and you are going to see an oasis of a multifaceted gem of Green Ronin interests, from freebooters to each of the Age titles to Mutants and Masterminds, and then all of the various aspects within. It is just it's gangbusters. There's a bunch of stuff
Hmm.
going on. Very, very vibrant. We had an event last week, very well attended. We had such a good time. Was the Engine launch party, and a party it was. It was a lot of fun. But that is the venue, for some. I think we need to think about a salon of some kind, where you can, because I would hang out and listen to it. I think it's good stuff, and I don't know that there is a way to I don't think people find that font of information or connection in other dialogues happening out in the TTRPG space, unless you're a
Oh
developer.
well,
Unless you're a
there's
developer.
it's shucks. Though, I mean, I'm certainly not the only person, doing this thinking. Like there are whole
Well,
communities out there, and I
but
my personal favorite right now in terms of like a scene to read from is the progressive wing of the OSR, right? Because they're doing a lot of cool stuff.
yeah,
Like I'm not talking about the folks who want to make another clone of Dungeons and Dragons, right? I'm talking about the folks who are making stuff like Ultraviolet Grasslands, and some very like experimental stuff, right? I think probably Morkbjerg is the like biggest product to come out of that, right? And it's been so hugely influential in terms of stripping back mechanics, in terms of presentation, in terms of kind of story and vibe first stuff, right?
yeah.
So
You get
it's
about 3 more seconds of this, and then
yeah. Um, okay, well, I guess
here's
that's
what
it.
here's what our friend Malcolm is doing, and I will mute you if you try to interrupt me. Malcolm he is referring you to another source, a resource that he values, and this is the program, Malcolm, where we talk to Malcolm about Malcolm,
Mhm.
and so this is your home, and so looking forward to you basking in the attention and the interest that will come when we do some kind of an event like that. And I say it every single darn time we do a program. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna we'll have to get together and talk about what you're comfortable with as far as what a salon looks like structure wise, because people will show up. and they will enjoy it because it's you. So that, I say, is that, and I won't hear another word of it, primarily because I have a meeting 5 minutes ago or 8 minutes ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, you're fine. Malcolm,
I totally forgotten about that.
Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for giving everybody their hour plus worth of Malcolm, and I want to thank the chat for hanging out with great questions and thoughtful insights. And I think that stay tuned. Monday we have Mutants Masterminds Monday. We've got a great. I always have this Sheppard, Malcolm, but in a good way. It is always a joy and truly insightful to sit and kind of hear your approach to this stuff. I value it a great deal, and I know folks do in chat and who are watching on demand as well.
Yeah, well, and also like there's stuff coming too, right? Like I want to talk about that. Like there's two Trojan War sized things that are in the hopper right now that I really want to talk to you about. And actually, there's something I'm going to be working on next week. That's kind of interesting as well. That I think we're hoping to get out sooner than that.
Okay. Then do you want to pop in on Thursday?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, we'll tentative.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, friends, you heard it here. There's a lot more to come and some great stuff in the hopper, and maybe as soon as next Thursday, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But for now, we're going to say goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend, a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday for Mutants Masterminds Monday, 2 p.m. right here in this very same spot. Bye.
Top.